Hey, how's it going, everyone? It is a beautiful, windy day out on the marsh. So today we are going to be getting into a little bit of a summary / reflection synopsis of this book that I just read, gifted to me by a friend, called If Beale Street Could Talk. I can't see the camera, so I don't know how zoomed in I am. So this book is written by James Baldwin, and then following the little review discussion of that, provided you all can hear. I don't know how well these microphones work with the mic buffer, the wind buffer. It's all experimental. I'm learning. So thanks for sticking with me in that regard. So I'm going to talk about this one, and then I'll dig up another poem. I think I'll try to find one of my earlier ones. I'll dig up kind of a random one from a long time ago. Read that, and then I'll talk a little bit about the meetings I went to today, which were very much needed and exciting, fulfilling. Many great characteristics of the ones I went to today. So we'll do that, and then I will read a little bit more of The Doors of Perception, which I mentioned in my last video. So let's get into it. I'm gonna get blown away here. I'm gonna get blown away and sunburned. But it's spring, and I need some vitamin D. Alrighty. So, If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. This was a quick reading novel. It was about 200 pages, I think. Nice small pocket size. I'll start by reading the back. A major work of Black American fiction. Like the blues, sweet, sad, and full of truth, this masterly work of fiction rocks us with powerful emotions. In it are anger and pain, but above all, love. The affirmative love of a woman for her man, the stunning love of the Black family. Sustaining love. Fawny, a talented young artist, finds himself unjustly arrested and locked in New York's infamous tombs. But his girlfriend, Tish, is determined to free him and to have his baby in this starkly realistic tale, a powerful indictment of American concepts of justice and punishment in our time. A moving, painful story, says Joyce Carol Oates in the New York Times book review, so vividly human and so obviously based on reality that it strikes us as timeless. The New Yorker observes that it often speaks in the author's true voice, bitter, cynical, blunt, worldly. His best novel yet, says the New Republic, his best novel yet, says the New Republic. Even Baldwin's most devoted readers are due to be stunned by it. James Baldwin, one of America's most celebrated authors, has written 15 books and co-authored 4 others. His widely acclaimed works have profoundly altered America's social and literary consciousness. Among his awards are the Partisan Review Fellowship, a National Institute of Arts and Letters Award, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. I read this one pretty quickly. I would say it was the sort of story where it felt like a very small but significant excerpt of one's life. It went back and forth along timelines where it would kind of, the way he wrote it is that the characters would have flashbacks and they would think of times when they were together before Fawny, the gentleman in the book, was arrested. It was very well done plot-wise, and in a way where I did not get from the work as much as I expected to by the end of it. I guess I was probably 140 pages in or 160 pages in or so out of 200, and I was thinking to myself, how is the remainder of this story going to be wrapped up? And I think that was one of the beautiful parts of it, is that this story allows for interpretation. It allows for imagination in a healthy dose. And I liked what was said about James Baldwin on the back about this book often speaks in the author's true voice, being bitter, cynical, blunt, and worldly, which is interesting because I have not read anything by Baldwin before, but the only things that I've seen regarding Baldwin have been quotes, and quotes specific to life in society, specific to concepts of love, and the ones that I particularly related to and appreciated were his quotes regarding love, which from, I would guess, most people's perspectives, they would consider to be definitely cynical, bitter, and blunt. What's interesting is that I don't remember exactly the quote, but what I do remember is that basically Baldwin claimed to believe that love is not something that abounds in the world that we live in right now. Love is actually something that's rare, or at least pure love. I think what he was alluding to is that, well, we all have the capacity for love. I think this is the key. We all have the capacity for love, but Baldwin seemed to believe that most people do not choose it. And that's something that I have come to agree with, because I think that, first of all, I don't think it's possible to choose love as often as we think it is. I think love to some capacity is automatic, and I think that I would tie that back to unconditional positive regard for all human beings. I think that we all kind of automatically love to a certain extent, especially early on in our lives. But as we develop and as we integrate ourselves into civilization, it seems that we don't want to accept the prices that come with it, and we get bitter, and we get spiteful, and we get jealous, and we act out. And the way that we act out is by not choosing love. We choose chaos, we choose thrill, and I guess what I would consider to be the positive of all of this is that these things that we choose lead us to desire love, they lead us to yearn for it, and they lead us to recognize its necessity as a role in our lives as human beings. So, I guess I would put it in a sense where I believe that the more that humanity collectively steps away from love, the more we develop a need for it, and the more it becomes absent in our lives to the point that we will either bounce back to it, to the point where people start to question what's really going on, and then maybe we step into it, and maybe we really start to ask ourselves some hard questions. But I'm not quite sure. Anyways, this was a very nice intro into James Baldwin. I'm grateful for the observant person who picked it out for me. And I'm grateful for people like James Baldwin who created something beautiful. The story was very, I guess, heart-wrenching would be a good descriptor for it. I'm trying to see. Interesting. So there's a list of 6, 8, 10 works by James Baldwin in the back of this book, and I think I may recognize one of them, which is titled One Day When I Was Lost, but otherwise I don't recognize any of the titles. So I guess it was published in 1974. That's surprising to me. I thought it was earlier than that. So yeah, I highly recommend that book. If you want a book that looks into discrimination, racism, and not so much, I wouldn't so much describe it as like a guilt trip or a critique of it, but one that just shows it as what it is, as existent. What else? Denial plays a big role in that story. What else? Stubbornness, forgiveness. It shows the reality of how people that love each other and people who are from even different backgrounds, people who share a lot, can still delve into this place of kind of disdain towards one another and get into this place where it's kind of automatic, and that they create this role for themselves in despising other people, and they fill the role kind of without questioning how they're continuing to fall into the role. So I would recommend it. Give it a look. It's a quick read, and you might find it in one of your local free libraries. All right, next I'm going to find a earlier poem. All right, this one works well. Just opened right up to it. People are kayaking out on the Marsh. I would love to figure out how to get back there. I would definitely try to kayak out there. It's finally warm enough to be outside in a short sleeve shirt. But it's also super windy. Hopefully you all can hear this. Okay, so this poem I wrote about 1.5 years ago. It's called Lest You Be Fooled. Denial the chameleon of emotional management. Feast your heart on the array of colors, feelings. Between the two choices, they sprawl, serving illusory purposes, parts to the gamut regardless. Serpent-like shifter, resting on one, few, always a blend. Spice of life, abounding because of it. Meshing together always with what appears as solid, still identifiable in the briefest glimpse of movement. Finally rid of it? Gone? Shit, there, it moved again. In being fooled, one will eventually become privy, bounding from high hills to vacant valleys, always present within observed experience. Sick joke, survival, defense, or challenge? One of the very few choices us pilgrims are presented with. That was a fun one. That was a fun one. Next, we will get into a little bit of a share regarding the meetings of the morning. So I went to my weekly Saturday morning meditation meeting, and a couple of wonderful things happened. Some funny, some scary, some sad. One of the funny things was that the facilitator of the meeting, they call the chair, he sets up these fake electric candles, these battery-operated candles, in the center of the room because it's a Saturday morning. The light is low. It's the light of dawn, and we silently meditate for 30 minutes, and then we have a standard meeting where we discuss. So it's nice and kind of dark and relaxing. So he sets up these two candles in the middle of the room, and we're just about to get the meeting started, and this woman walks in, and she just kind of strides through the center of the room, and I think she was just trying to get in because she could tell that we were about to start and sit down, but she walked directly into the candles and just kicked them, like both of them, hard across the room, and the batteries went flying everywhere. And I chuckled to myself because Brian, the facilitator, he has told me before that it's happened many times. He said today that it's never happened to both at the same time. And I was chuckling to myself, but I went and picked up the batteries and helped put them back. But it was just like, I was thinking to myself, how do you not see the glowing yellow candles in the middle of the white floor? But I can't say I've never done something like it before, and it's no big deal. But it was just funny. It was one of those event of the moment types of things. What else? Something else funny happened, but I don't remember what it was. A couple of nice synchronicities occurred. The meditation theme, he reads a guided meditation at the beginning, just one that he finds and chooses if it's a good one. And the theme of it today was acceptance, the idea of acceptance. And we went through the meeting, we meditated, it was wonderful. I love the meditation because it functions as a training of focus for my mind. And the reason why I see training of focus for my mind as necessary is because of distraction. If distraction did not exist as a concept, as a reality, training of focus would not be necessary. But if I'm being honest with myself, distraction is abundant everywhere. And I guess in order for distraction to exist, it's implying that there is something to be distracted from. So I guess the important question when considering distraction is, what is it that you are not desiring to be distracted from? And if you do not desire to be distracted from it, why are you giving in to the distractions? Which I think is a very tricky question to answer. I mean, not so much tricky, but more mind-bending. I think that it has to do with addiction. I think it has to do with instant gratification. I think that distractions oftentimes serve as instant gratification, and it is why they are addicting, first of all, and second of all, it is why they are appealing to us, even though that we know that they oftentimes do not play into long-term satisfaction, or at least I'm speaking for myself here. So we spoke of acceptance. Acceptance of times when bad things happen to us, or when things that are not our fault happen to us, and we still have to deal with them. These things are very hard because, think of someone who gets sent to jail for something they didn't do. Think of what goes on in their head while they sit there and spend time locked up. So I guess the theme was acceptance in connection to the reality that sometimes things happen. Sometimes things are not fair. Someone shared that his father once said to him that the only thing fair in life is the actual fair that comes around for 2 weeks out of the year. And I thought that was hilarious. Like, you get your annual dose of fair. Just a funny dad joke. So went to that meeting. There was then kind of a good discussion that we had afterwards. And beyond that, I went and got myself a decaf coffee because I can't drink the strong coffee anymore. It sends my nervous system on a roller coaster. Went to get a coffee, sat down and read for a bit, and then I went from there to the ACA meeting, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And basically, those meetings people go to discuss what happened to them as children, basically, what they felt they learned, what was out of their control. And it's a place where people go to basically acknowledge that, yes, bad things happen. People who love us hurt us. But the whole point is to acknowledge that we are capable of and do the same things as the people that we are, holding responsible in our minds and our hearts. So it's where this necessity for forgiveness comes into play. It's the fine line between being rightful in your anger towards someone for screwing you over, and also acknowledging that, maybe the person wasn't capable of any more at that moment. So those are very helpful meetings, because what I appreciate about them is that it's not necessarily so tied to alcoholism or drug addiction as AA is, but it more so addresses behavioral addiction within someone's behavior, which, plain and simple, affects most people, if not all people. I would say all people, but I can only speak for myself, really. But also, if I'm being honest with myself, I feel like if I'm not a solipsist, I can acknowledge that everything that I'm capable of, someone else is capable of, thought-wise. And maybe that's generalizing, but who knows? We all can have our own theories. So I went to ACA. It was a great meeting. I'm not going to the Saturday ones as often. I usually go on Tuesdays. And I'm not going as often because of my busier schedule with school and the internship. But basically, it so happened that the chair of the meeting shared that she didn't know if she should talk about it, but basically she was very upset by what's going on in our country right now with the violence and the political climate. And I think people can share about whatever's bothering them, so I don't have a problem with what people choose. Everything ties back to our humanity. So she shared this, and she said what she really wanted to focus on today was acceptance. And I thought it was funny because of the theme of the meditation meeting this morning. And acceptance is a big theme in all recovery meetings, so I guess I'm not going to pretend like it's not possible that the topic couldn't come up for both meetings on the same day, but it felt aligned. So I did that, and I came back, made some food, caught up with a friend, and decided to come out here and read a bit. But these meetings are pretty incredible to me. And I'll share a story from this morning, which I found to be refreshing and also, I don't know, somewhat scary in a sense, but scary in a sense that I'm used to. And it would be that a gentleman that attended the meeting shared how he was upset by his kids' actions, and basically his daughter was dishonest and in turn, I guess, disrespectful by her dishonesty. And the gentleman felt very frustrated by this, and he felt like he needed to be upset and to show that he was upset to his daughter. And I guess it goes back to that fine line between being rightfully angry, but then realizing that if you allow yourself to react out of an emotional, if you allow yourself to react emotionally instead of respond in a grounded fashion, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're also doing the person that you're reacting to a disservice. And we spoke after the meeting, and a way that I kind of tied to this experience, because we were talking about it, and I was saying I can understand how that would be really frustrating. Basically, the daughter had lied about something that she did, and I referred to Dostoevsky and Crime and Punishment when Raskolnikov's friend basically says that one of the finest privileges of that human beings are granted is the ability to lie, and that we do it, which I don't know if that's how it was put exactly in the book. It's been a while since I've read it, but I think the point is that it's I guess he meant privilege over other beings. Not as in privilege as if it's necessarily a good thing. And I guess the idea was that we all lie to some extent. We all embellish. And the gentleman who was upset told me that he realized that, yes, he finds himself often embellishing stories when he retells them. And he said to himself, well, I lie. And I said, yeah, I do too. And when I lie, I have to take accountability for it. Otherwise, I allow it to poison my character. And it poisons my character in such a way where the more that I lie without acknowledging it and kind of calling myself out for it, telling on myself, the farther away from truth that I get within. And as this happens, the less able I am to distinguish truth of any circumstance. And the way that I would describe truth in the purest sense is that truth is what makes destiny possible. A person's destiny is only possible to be fulfilled if the person aligns themselves with truth. And truth may, in my belief set and in my experience, truth is God granted. Truth is the all. It's everything. It's everything that is meant to prosper and to remain. So I guess it's not something that's always existent, but it's something that's always there waiting to be found and waiting to be worked towards. But basically this man at the meeting, he kind of chuckled when I made the Dostoevsky comment, and at first he thought it was an interesting thing to respond with, and I think most people would, but I think that he also understood where I was coming from. And basically the point of my response was to say, man, like, I get that you're upset that your very young daughter lied to your face, but, you know, in his share earlier in that meeting, he said, I'm mad at her, but I'm actually mad at myself because I'm the one who taught it to her. And that right there, that example, is a great similar sort of human truth example that this book gets into. Just kind of harsh, blunt, worldly, bitter truth. And that's just how it goes. And one of the things that's beautiful about truth is that it's very freeing. The truth hurts, but it only hurts as long as you let it hurt. Like the truth that human beings have a tendency to lie, whether it be by omission of information, exaggeration, or just direct, straight mistruths. One can look at that as, like, I don't know, a sentence, a doomed sentence, or one can just look at it as what it is. And as people all trying to, I guess, be better in some sense, even if be better equates to or translates to enjoying more of a rounded experience, having a better experience in life. I think everyone's working toward that. So I think, if I'm being honest with myself, being better or ending up having a better life experience comes with the work of being accountable and being better as an individual, which requires work. So I think it's a privilege of life, or a blessing of life, to be able to work towards that better. And better, in my opinion, just translates to that which allows us to experience what we desire. Because if we all experience what we desire, or we all were at the level of relatability to others, to ability to appreciate life, ability to choose love over fear or hate, we would see no need to be better. And I think that if I had to take a guess, most people have an innate desire to be better in some sense, because I think most people have an innate desire to have a more fulfilling life experience. So we discussed this, and the guy was very kind, very insightful. Yet the reality is that no matter how good you are at understanding concepts, at understanding practices, you have to put this stuff into action. And sometimes we become blind. Emotional intoxication is how we described it in our ACA meeting this morning. And I think that's exactly what this guy was describing. He was experiencing with his daughter was emotional intoxication. He felt so let down, both in and of himself, and seeing this letdown in her happen, and he didn't know what to do about it. And he emotionally reacted to a point where his wife saw it as a problem, and chaos just kind of blossomed out of it. So I don't know, it's very nice to be able to go to these meetings and just relate to people in their struggles, and relate by having experience and experiencing the same things all the time. Something that I read recently, okay, this is what I was thinking of. A passage that I read just connected in my mind to the whole not being able to, just because you know phrases, I don't know, just because you can think about how to attack things in the moment, you can talk about them and have an understanding, does not mean that you can necessarily practice them efficiently. And the passage goes, "The world of selves, of time, of moral judgments, and utilitarian considerations, the world of self-assertion, of cocksureness, of overvalued words, and idolatrously worshipped notions." That's exactly what I'm referring to. I guess it's where holier than thou comes from, and it's where the adage, practice what you preach, comes from, because a hell of a lot of people preach things that they do not practice. And I will include myself in that, because I preach things all the time, even to myself, that I don't always practice. So it's a work in progress. All of this stuff is a work in progress, and that's okay. And then the last thing I'll add about this experience with the gentleman was that I said to him, I understand where you're coming from, but what I said is that when I consider myself having kids, I think to myself that I understand that no matter how well or how efficiently I carry myself when it comes to teaching my children, ways to act best as a human being, ways to act lovingly, forgivingly, understandingly, all of this stuff. Like, say I never lie to my kid. Say I never get caught in a lie, whether or not it's something that they see without even calling me out on it. They just, they say the example of embellishing a story. The kid was there when you experienced the story that you're telling, but then a week later, they're next to you when you tell it to your friend and you completely embellish the story, and they see that. They may not respond to it in their own mind as if they may not regard it in their own mind as a lie, but there's some programming that happens there. There's some questioning of why is this embellishing happening? What's the purpose of it? And a lot of this stuff is subconscious. But the point I'm making is that I said to him, no matter how well you do as a parent, there's no way that you will ever be the only influence to your child. Your child will be influenced by other people, other adults, other authority figures, peers at school, and most concerningly, the internet. Your kid might pull up this video one day and be influenced by it. And I hope that the influence of this video is positive. Or I hope the influence of this video is influence which leads to beneficial growth for the person watching it and people that they interact with. And I'm trying to think. I missed a point earlier. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of everything. I think maybe I should take down more pages of notes when I do this. But well, it was a concept that came up today when I was thinking about the story this guy told me. And he was telling me, when someone is trying to get your goat or grind your gears or elicit a reaction, he said, how do you see it coming? And I think what we said in response to him was that there are times when this sort of stuff happens and you can't avoid it, and that's when responding to them in a mature adult manner comes into play, and not emotionally reacting, because people like chaos. It's just, it gets us going. So it doesn't necessarily help us very much, though. So what I said to him is that regardless of someone doing something to you which is messed up or mean or something that really hurts, regardless of whether or not that happens, it has happened. And it's happened between you and them. So, from that point going forward, the way that you respond to it both affects you and it affects them. It affects the way that they will interact with you going forward, and it also affects the way that you regard yourself and will regard that person, depending upon how they receive it. So an example would be if I stand up to a friend for something that they did that bothered me or hurt me, the way that I respond to that, the way that I go about standing up to them or bringing it to their attention is important, because it shows them, one, how I'm basically telling them subversely how I expect to be treated because I wasn't treated in a certain way. Two, it shows them how you are willing to present yourself to them when you're upset. So you can either run to someone who did you wrong and scream at them and spit in their face, or you can approach them and say, hello. I wouldn't say hello, that's a little much. I would say, hey, can we talk? There's something that happened earlier which I'm feeling resentful about, and I just wanted to talk it over with you and let you know how I feel. And then you go from there. So I think that people do not realize the amount of power that they have in regard to other people treating them in certain ways. It's that these things compound on one another. So say I have a friend and I, stand up to them and describe how I have felt wronged, and I do it multiple times. The inevitable fact is that the person is going to change how they interact with you. And I would throw in a caveat here and say that I'm not necessarily saying that all people would react positively to mature intervention, but what I am saying is that this is a good way to, weed people out, so to speak. If you maturely intervene with someone who means something to you and they begin to treat you worse, that should be a good sign that the person that you're relating to doesn't respect you at all, and that you should separate yourself from them. So I don't know, basically this came from that discussion I had with this gentleman too, because he was talking about how he felt so justified in being upset, which is fine. It's completely fine. And again, it comes back to that fine line, because sometimes it takes, I've been on the end of something before where I've done someone wrong, and when they showed their anger at me, it actually made me think twice. But the fine line comes when you realize that showing this anger repetitively and, stewing in it and building a home within it is not going to help. So emotions should be felt, and they should be experienced, and they should be expressed. But I guess the most simple way that I can put it is that anger can be expressed in a respectful manner, I think. So that's what I experienced today, and it was pretty beautiful. I'm going to go get some homework done after this, and yeah. I'll get a couple pages in just because I'm out here. little too windy. We're gonna call it. Alrighty. One last little funny anecdote before we go. So the shirt I'm wearing is, if you're not familiar with it, an album cover for the Smashing Pumpkins. I don't know if you can see it. It's the Siamese Dream album cover, 30th anniversary. I got it at a show. I love the Smashing Pumpkins. But the funny story is that I was at a meeting one time, and a woman came up to me after the meeting, and she said, "Hey, is that you as a kid on your shirt?" And I thought to myself, wow. I definitely did not ever see that happening. I always honestly thought that the kids on this album cover were a little bit ogreish looking. a little bit mean, but you know, they're cute now. I think they're all grown up. But anyways, I was just like, nope, this is a Smashing Pumpkins album cover, and they're a great band. You should go listen to them. And yeah, if you've not heard any of the Pumpkins music, fire up Siamese Dream or Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. They're two of the best albums ever. Have a great rest of your day, and go read something good. Spread love in the world, and tell yourself the truth. Much love.